Welcome back. Data feed still coming through live on the show. It's State of the Nation. Be part of it. Tweet at Gimba Omar CTV. Use the hashtag State of the Nation. Air your thoughts. Labour, at trying times, has risen to the occasion. Oftentimes, the none to fight for what the people want with just one voice. In the recent past, to this time, the strikes have plagued the nation. Some called by Labour to demand for better conditions of work, and at other times, for better economy. Only recently, oil union workers under the aegis of Pengasson called off a planned strike after meeting with government representatives. Abiodun Aremu, Labour analyst, joins me in the studio to look at these issues arising. Want to thank you so much indeed for coming on State of the Nation. Also, from our Abuja studios, Engineer Benjamin Okeke is the Director General, National Power Trading Institute of Nigeria. He also joins us as well. Want to thank you, gentlemen, so much indeed for coming on the show. Let's begin with you, Mr. Aremu, in the studios. The Pengasson botched strike, we could call it botched at that, is one of waves of recent strikes that we have seen in Nigeria. Virtually every other sector, if you look at it, in the health sector, in the education sector, there has been strikes. Why has there been an upsurge, you suppose, in this administration?
Yeah, it's normal for a strike to occur when government defaults in collective agreement. In most cases, the strike is the last resort. You see, that workers has to take up. You see, there are three main issues that always lead workers to strike. And yes, there are also two types of strike. Because you have strike that has to do with the core demands, you see, as workers in industrial relations. And within that context, you have strike that has to do with default, you see, an agreement reached on remunerations, which we call the salary. But there are two most important aspects of that strike. You see, the environment of work is part of what are also negotiated by workers when you talk in terms of strike. Then the security of employment, because these are the three main issues under which workers have to go on strike. And when you look at it, it extends to those who are pensioners. Because when there are negotiations, you are not negotiating just on the salary you are collecting now. You have to talk in terms of your terminal benefits, you see, and the pension that comes afterward. Because what workers is being paid at any point in time is just the quantum, you see, of its input in the production process. And in most cases, when there are negotiations, there are bound to be agreement. When you see all the strikes that have taken place in this country, you see in the last 20, 25 years, what you discovered is that it's government or employers that default in most cases. Because once you have negotiated to the point of collective agreement, what is important is that every party, you see, respect those agreements. And when you look at it, even for workers to get those agreements, it takes serious struggle, serious processes.
Can we ever get out of this kind of situation?
It is difficult to get out of the situation where you have government that is insincere about its responsibility.
We don't know about insincerity. One thing I know is that the government has always had to dialogue with Labour at some point to try to resolve this issue.
Dialogue leads you to agreement. You see, there's what we call collective bargaining. Processes of dialogue lead you to do what you can call exchange. Let me give, for instance, the examples. In 2009, the labor centers demanded 52,300 minimum wage. It took a series of struggles to pressure government to set up a committee to negotiate that. And it took up to March 23rd, 2011, after more than 2 years, you see, for government to agree and now sign into law called the National Minimum Act. But what do you have? There were other struggles for more than 6 months to get government to implement those agreements. As I speak to you now, government has defaulted in undermining and manipulating.
What have you done? What have you as Labour done when it comes to electricity supply? We're not getting enough of that. And the Minister of Power, Housing and Infrastructure, Babatunde Fashola, has insisted that pay before you get the services. The increases have come up to 45% in the last 6 months, but the people have not gotten a resultant increase in electricity supply. Where does that take you next? What do you do as Labour?
You see, this is where in most cases, you are talking of electricity. The issue of electricity has also become a contentious issue. When you are talking of payment, who owns the electricity sector? That's one issue that has to be determined. Government, despite that engagement processes were on, by 2011, forcefully handed over, you see, the electricity sector to private investors who, based on what we call credit financing, there's none of them today that have the capacity, in terms of their capital capacity, to run the electricity sector.
Let me put you on pause there. Let's find out if that is true enough. Engineer Benjamin Okeke is in Abuja. I want to thank you for holding forth for us for such a long time. Let me come to you now. We have seen the electricity regime of this present government dwindled today more than ever before. The minister has attributed this to attacks on oil pipelines in the Niger Delta region. Is there a sense that electricity tariffs based on this be looked into as a way of increasing it?
Thank you very much, Gimbia. First of all, let me thank you for giving me this window to speak to Nigeria. And again, my name is Ruben, okay, not Benjamin. Straight to the question you just asked me. The Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing is very, very correct in what he's saying. Because there is no way you can get electricity without fund. It is something like a perennial problem. Where do you start? You must have to have finance, you have to have revenue or money to improve the generation. I heard the last speaker with you in the studio saying that, well, we are demanding that you have to pay before you have the electricity. Of course, if you go to a shopping complex or anywhere, if you want to buy anything, you have to pay before you can lift. Now we have prepayment meters. What prepayment meter does is that you have to pay before you receive the service. Now I'm talking about increase in the tariff. Obviously, power sector as it is now, the market is not very good because the customers are not paying. And of course, unless you have a direct or opposite flow of cash, you cannot maintain the upstream. You cannot generate. You cannot pay for gas. And therefore, the tariff, as the minister has said it, is very adequate to be looked into because somebody has to pay for you to get that improvement in service. The increase that was done at the beginning of the year is quite adequate.
Engineer Ruben.
Now, Nigerians, some scrupulous people are vandalizing, blowing up the gas pipe.
Engineer Ruben, my apologies for calling you Benjamin. It was a typo from my side. Engineer Ruben, energy security that you're talking about is indeed a major challenge. We all agree to that. What do you make of a situation where assets of power stations, for example, the discos are sold out?
Well, the equity, the assets, the discos bought during the privatization is quite okay. But like the last speaker said, that none of them has the capacity or the capability to improve. Well, I don't agree because there was a viability studies. Their credibility was looked into to find out whether they are capable to run these facilities we have in the power station, in distribution companies. As far as I'm concerned, they have that capacity to attract funds. I agree quite all right that you need huge capital, almost what they spent in buying the equity, in order to raise the distribution facilities in particular that is going on. Because for them to reduce the losses you have in the distribution network, you need a lot of investment.
Engineer Ruben, Engineer Ruben, just hold your thoughts here. We're going to have to go on a very quick break. You're watching State of the Nation. When we return, my two guests will continue on this very important topic. Stay with us.